A good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening. Uh, I hope everybody is doing well. Skepticism is healthy. Uh, don't be very certain of your thoughts. Don't be very certain of your emotions. Don't be very certain of the belief system in your head that was that you were programmed to have by your genes, by your early childhood experiences. Skepticism, reassessing your thoughts, is very important. Every day in the morning, you wake up and you ask yourself, is there any possibility that my thoughts, my belief system about myself, about others, and about the world might be wrong? And every day you reassess that. That is the beginning of the road towards maturity, towards psychological growth. The world advanced by skepticism, people who did not accept the status quo, people who did not accept the facts, and they questioned everything. People questioned the ability to fly, the ability to communicate online, the ability to have live videos. 20 years ago, we would have never thought that at some point, I will be able to talk to you across thousands of miles. Somebody was skeptical of the status quo and was able to change it. At a personal level, at a group level, at institutional level, at society level, skepticism is healthy. The more mature you are, the more you will have the ability to be skeptical without fear, because you know that you trust your brain that you will reach the most acceptable fact at the moment without being afraid that it will shake your inside. Uh, all of us are born with two factors that we have no control over it. So before even we are born, our brains are programmed genetically to survive. We have to understand that. We have no control over how our brains were programmed. And don't feel guilty if your abilities are different than somebody else, if your intelligence is less than somebody else. The goal is to get the best outcome, the best humanly outcome possible based on your brain, what you have, with your weaknesses, with your insecurities, with whatever was programmed before you were even born and the first 3 years of your life. That's who we are. That determines 70, 80, 90% of who you are. So calm down and realize that your genetic makeup and your early childhood experience tried to prepare you to survive, exactly like animals in the jungle try to survive. There's no the difference is we're more advanced, our brain is more advanced, we have more awareness, we have a complicated consciousness that we see things and perceive things differently. That in lower animals it's less complicated, very simple. So you're trying to find the food to survive, you're trying to find the shelter, you're trying basically not to die. When we advanced, when we developed, and the hierarchy of the evolutionary pyramid, life became so complicated, and the survival became physical survival, emotional survival, societal survival, family survival became very complicated. But still, your genes are programmed based on your ancestors in the jungle 100,000, 200,000, million years ago. Wants you to be, that means that the negative thoughts in our heads are the rule, not the exception, because you are protected when you believe that the neighbors around you may be preparing something against you. So if you let your brain function by default, it's going to be all negative. Like they say, we are programmed to believe in more false positive than false negative. That means you don't want to take any chances. So if you meet somebody and there is a chance that this is a peaceful person or a person who may attack you, it is better for your brain to think that this person will attack you. That will be the default position. So the default position is fear. The default position is paranoia. The default position is suspiciousness. You're programmed like that. Is that true? So to survive, okay, your brain is programmed to think of danger, to think of fear. If you let it control you, and that's your basic brain, that's your limbic brain and your reptilian brain inside you, and that's how animals function. So animals, if they see a noise, if they hear a noise around them, it is better for them that to perceive it as a lion coming to eat them than it's just the wind. So it is safer for you to be afraid of others. That's how what your genes tell you. Is this true or not? That's what you need to reassess every day. So you have to understand that you are programmed. You are programmed to think negative. That people ask, why do I have more negative thoughts than positive thoughts in a day? Is because that's the default position of humans. So the default position, if you leave yourself without active thinking, without controlling yourself, without activating your prefrontal cortex, which is that's what that's why we became humans, is that we have an active cortex, but we don't activate it enough, and we leave our inner brains and lower brains control our lives. The gut feeling that you have, your gut feeling is not always right, and you have to be skeptical of that. Your intuition is not always right. So if all your actions and all your behaviors are based on your gut feeling and your intuitions, that means you're functioning at a lower brain. You have not activated your higher brain yet. So your higher brain, the cognitive, the executive functions, should assess situations based on evidence, not based on basic brain functions of fear and survival. You have to understand that. So to understand how your brain works, if you activate your prefrontal cortex, then you have to at least have some control over your inner impulses, over your lower brains, over your gut feelings, over your negative thoughts. So this is an active process that you have to understand it and apply it every day. Either the higher cortex wins or the inner brain or the lower brains win. It's a battle between the two. So there is a battle going on inside your brain between higher brains and lower brains. Lower brains will tell you, don't leave the house because you could be eaten by a lion. Higher brain, prefrontal cortex, would tell you, no, I leave the house, there are no lions in the neighborhood. The chance of me being eaten by a lion is very small. And if you stay at home, I will not survive either. So that battle is going on, that people are bad, that people hate me. That's inner gut feeling. People hate me. Why are people bad? Why are people treating me like that? Or these types of people are bad, stereotyping. Or this group of people, or this race behaves certain way. All these, all these are basic brain function that protect us and help us survive, that me and the people who are like me against the other people. That's how racism happened. So it's a basic immature brain function. That's how which racism or sexism or nationalism, all of that. What happened is you are protecting yourself with a layer. The layer of protection will include you, the people who are genetically similar to you, your kids, your kin, next of kin, your family, and then the people who are like you, somewhat the genetic similarity. We tend to ally with the people like us. So it's us versus them. That's basic inner brain function that protect us. Why skepticism is healthy? Why do we have to assess and reassess our thoughts, which was instilled in our brains by our genetic makeup and by our parents and by our life experiences? Because these thoughts, this belief system that we created or was imposed on us, we did not create consciously. We added up on it based on the past. It has to be reassessed every day. If you want to advance in life, if you want to improve your job performance, if you want to improve your relationships, you have to always be skeptical of your inner thoughts that might be wrong. And you have to start your day by telling yourself, people don't hate me, people are not against me. It could be me, because of my insecurity, make me perceive the stimuli certain way. So if you are a sensitive person by your genetic makeup, some people have this kind of interpersonal sensitivity more than others, or some people, we call it neuroticism. People are neurotic by their nature. Okay, they tend to over analyze the stimuli in a dangerous way, in a risky way, that a look that's meaningless will be perceived as a dangerous look, or somebody is planning something against them. And that's this kind of misperceptions is the core aspects of many mental illnesses, including psychotic illnesses, is that you perceive you're bombarded by millions and maybe billions of stimuli around you. By selective attention and by how your brain works, you select the stimuli that fit your needs or fit your fears or fit your past experiences. So there is a process of selective attention that lead to cognitive bias, that because of your brain is wired certain way, your brain is like a magnet. It will attract the thoughts or the experiences that you want to happen, the self-fulfilling prophecy. So then, understanding that is number one. You have to reprogram your brain every day that the way I see things might be wrong. That's what skepticism is. It doesn't mean you have to be skeptical of yourself all the time. In the end, you have to make a decision. In the end, you have to make a decision and live with it. That's life. That decision might be right, might be wrong. But how do we mature We learn from the decision we made yesterday, reassess it based on evidence. So the next decision you ask yourself, am I gonna do it right this time or not? Did I make the mistake yesterday based on my faulty assumptions, based on my cognitive bias? Or you're gonna repeat the same mistake again and again and again. A lot of people, including many of us, we tend to repeat the same mistake again and again and again because of this kind, because we are certain of the thoughts. That's most of it is automatic thought that come automatically, already in our heads. We're already programmed. So we think these thoughts are right. So you go there. If you're afraid of something, you make it happen. Not because the stimuli themselves, the stimuli are neutral. So you go on the street and you'll find 100 people on the street. We know that some people like you. From those 100 people, some people will hate you. Some people don't care about you. And the majority of people don't care about you. The majority of people don't care about you. You give them attention. You give them attention. You make them, by your misperceptions, monsters. So we create our own monsters sometimes. Are there monsters in the world? Yes. Is everybody around us a monster? How to determine if what you're seeing in front of you, are you threatened or not? Yes. If there is a difference between real threat and perceived threat. Real threat means you're attacked by somebody. Perceived threat in our heads means you think you're attacked by somebody. So real threat means people hate you and they plan something against you. Yes, that's real threat. The lion is coming to eat you. Perceived threat means you think based on past experiences, although you're not sure of it. You think that people hate you and plan something against you. So all your perceptions become based on that. You're afraid of people. What will happen when you have this deep fear and insecurity inside you? You will create threats that do not exist. You will create monsters that do not exist. Where do they exist? They exist in your head. Does your brain like that? Absolutely. Your brain likes to create monsters. Even if these monsters don't exist, it creates it. Your brain loves to synthesize monsters in your head. Why is that? Because that protects you and help you survive. That's how your ancestors long time ago who were living inside caves, when they saw noise outside, their brain did not tell them, oh, this is just wind. No, this was an animal coming to eat you. So it's better to protect yourself. So if it was wind, you're not gonna lose. Okay, see how our brain works. So how our brain is programmed to negativity. If you think this is either a wind and the noise outside, either a wind or it's an animal coming to eat you. If you perceive it as a wind all the time, you'll be eaten up by lions. But if you perceive it all the time, that's what the false positive is. If you think it's a lion and it's not a lion or not a tiger, nothing's going to happen to you because you already protected yourself. So the basic brain is programmed to perceive things as negative, is programmed to err on the side of caution, is to err on the side of danger, is to err on the side of risk. So programmed like that. That's why risk takers are a minority in society. Their genes are programmed differently. Or those risk takers, either they are programmed differently, could consider it, let's say, a genetic mutation, which it could be, by the way, it could be like a dopaminergic function, that those risk takers, or those risk takers, they activated their frontal cortex and they were able to suppress their inner fears, and they are doing the opposite. To the opposite. And sometimes we call this counterphobia. Counterphobia means sometimes you do excessively the things that you are afraid of. So you do what you're afraid of. So the people who climb mountains, very high risk. People who jump, people who do this, who do that. A lot of sports are very dangerous sports. Why people do it? We call this counterphobia. That means you still have the fear, but you do the opposite of the fear, and you do it excessively to kill the demons inside you, to suppress it. That's called counterphobia. These people who said, no, we're going to overcome that, we're going to do exactly the opposite of what we are afraid of. We call this counterphobia. You counteract your fears. So that ongoing conflict between your higher brain and your lower brain is an ongoing process, and you have to be aware of it, and you have to always ask yourself every day in the morning, when you brush your teeth in the mirror, you ask yourself, is there any possibility that my thoughts, my assumptions, my belief system around myself, others, and the world, is there any possibility that this is wrong and need to be reassessed? Or I need to start to work on facts and evidence and see if really what I am perceiving around me is a true perception or it's distorted perception, cognitive bias. Most of the bias is unconscious. The process of psychological growth, basically, which is a very complicated process, is to try every day to bring what's your unconscious to your consciousness. How do you do that? It's not easy because you don't know what's in your unconscious. But if you have any hints about what's your unconscious, get it to the consciousness and talk loud to yourself about it. The more you suppress, the more you repress things inside you, and it goes deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. You have no access to it. That means you have no access whatsoever to your own self. That on the outside, you're not a real person, you're not a genuine person, because your fears are so deeply ingrained inside you, and you don't even have access, you don't even know what they are. This has happened more when you're traumatized. And your behavior on the outside is just nothing but you're trying to protect yourself. You're trying to protect yourself. You're afraid of lions all the time. And you create a system around you. You create a system for your protection. And sometimes you create a group of people around you who believe in the same, who created the same system. So you all believe in the same system, trying to protect yourself. And for these people who create these types of system, social system, family system, friends, groups, and all of that, I would tell them skepticism is healthy. Be skeptical. Don't be 100% sure of your thoughts. If you're 100% sure of your thoughts, you're trying to protect yourself from something. or you're afraid to stir the water or the boat, or just keep it as it is. Don't stir it. That people who are afraid of that, because they are actually deep inside them, they are unsure of their thoughts and they are afraid that they're going to mess up their whole system. So it's better to keep it. And these are the people who accept the status quo, even if the status quo is miserable. Even if the status quo, they are not happy with it. And they can just be, the life can be miserable, but they are accepting it as it is. They don't want to change it. There is a big difference between accepting yourself and accepting the whole system that you created around you. I want you to accept yourself, your abilities, you accepting yourself. Radical acceptance of yourself will include accepting your weaknesses and knowing they are weaknesses, accepting all what we talked about, not accepting the misery you live in. There's a difference between the two. Not accepting the abuse, not accepting the being used by others. No. These things, you need to work on them. You need to accept yourself, that who you are, with your faulty perceptions, with your faults, with your insecurities, with your fears, that this is part of being human. That's number one. And then you start working on that. And you start working on these faulty perceptions. But you have to recognize it first. You have to recognize it first. You have to recognize it in a fair way, fair and square. Don't distort it. Don't distort it to counteract your fears. That your inner brain is active here. Your higher executive functions, your brain, should tell you what's the evidence for that. If you don't have evidence, it means put this in a column of thoughts that I need to reassess. You might be sure of something more than others, but there are things that's not. If you're happy with it, it's fine. I'm not saying change everything, but if some of your thoughts are causing you problems, don't be afraid to reassess them and tell yourself skepticism is healthy. The world advanced by skepticism. The world advanced not by certainty. If we are all certain of what we're doing, I always tell people, we will be still at the Stone Age, making stones and making them sharp to cut the meat and all of that. Somebody was skeptical that making rocks and stones as tools is not the fact. We have to do better than that. Then somebody found that there's something called fire. He saw something, and they invented, or they discovered the fire. And then they discovered that if you put the seeds, and then you put some water on it, guess what? You will have a tree. You will have corn, you will have wheat, you will have food. And then how to create societies. Actually, women were the first one when they were raising kids. Then when they throw the seeds in the soil, they saw it coming out. There's life coming there. There are plants coming out of there. And these people who did not accept the status quo, they question everything. They are good observers. Their thoughts are based on evidence, and they don't accept the status quo. They always know that can something better happen to me and to the people around me? What do I need to do to change myself, improve myself, and improve others around me? The best way to do this is to realize, number one, that your thoughts that was installed and deeply ingrained into your brain might not be true all the time. Skepticism is healthy. Reassess it. People might not be that bad as you think. People may not hate you as you think. Maybe you have more talent than you think. Maybe you can be more successful than you think. Maybe your inner demons that you created, what's limiting your ability to function. How to free yourself from these demons that you created, the fears that you created. You didn't create it consciously. No, your genetics and mom and dad and your early life experiences started to instill, program you to believe certain way. That's what it is. If you understand how the brain works and be able to work on yourself, you start to improve faster. And the best way to do it is when you start that process, you always make your actions precede your motivation. So you don't wait for your desires, for your instincts to make you. No, you go and do it. Once you start to think that people are not bad, people are not going to eat me up, people are not against me. So if you have the social anxiety and fears of others, you go and jump and do it. The first jump will be tough, will be painful. Then the next one, the second jump is the most important one, because most people will find the first jump difficult, they stop. If you're able to do the second, that's what determines your success. Not usually the second step, not the first step. The first step will be miserable, will be tough, will be painful, will be scary. Don't stop at that. Just do the second one. And then the third one will be easier. So the second step is more important than the first step. Because what happened is you habituated your brain and you told brain, you know what, I will do it again. And then the third one will be easier, and the fourth one will be easier, and you continue to do it, you don't stop. If you stop, your brain will go back to its programmed cells. Your brain, you're changing, you're reformatting your brain actually. You're reprogramming your brain. You're putting a new set of programs in the brain now. It takes a long time to download, and that's what you're doing. You're downloading new program. And it takes a long time, and you have to be patient when you program your brain that people are not actually against me, or I am capable of doing something, or I'm not that insecure, or I'm not a failure, or I'm not better than anybody else. I am like anybody else. We all struggle. We're all struggling in life. We're all programmed a certain way. And if we understand that, we will be more able to, number one, accept other people who are different than us and be more empathic. You will be more empathic if you understand that we're all the product of factors that we have no control over it. And we're not better than anybody else, and we're not less than anybody else. We're just different. So you calm down, you become less judgmental, and you become more empathic and more able to be effective socially, and maybe you'll be more able to change somebody else to the better, make them improve their lives better. And you also tell them, calm down, I was like you, and I became somewhat skeptical of my thoughts, and I reassessed them, and I found out that my thoughts were wrong. I'm reassessing them. And don't be afraid to acknowledge that you were wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. We all become wrong. So the thoughts I'm giving you today might be wrong tomorrow. I will reassess it tomorrow. And if I if I have some new thoughts, I will let you know. And I will tell myself I was wrong yesterday and I have new evidence now. And that's how the humans grow. And that's how our prefrontal cortex becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And 100,000 years from now, I think the human brain will be shaped differently. The evolution will continue. And actually, the prefrontal cortex will become bigger in size, and also it become more efficient. The synaptic connections become more efficient. That's why we are smarter than people who lived 100,000 years ago or 200,000 years ago. That's the process of evolution. Learning. So if you want to get better, you have to learn something. I don't know who said that. Might be Bill Gates or somebody from the technology world, said that intelligence at this age is the ability to learn, de-learn, and relearn. Is the ability to learn, de-learn, and relearn. The other definition of intelligence is the ability to adapt to change. So you learn something today, be ready to erase it tomorrow and learn something else. That's intelligence. Nothing is fixed. Skepticism always. My thoughts today might change and I will have new thoughts tomorrow. There's nothing wrong with that. The ability to learn, de-learn what you learned yesterday, and learn something new. It's an ongoing, continuous learning process. That's maturity. And that's called the ability to adapt to change. When new evidence exists, you adapt to it. That's how the world advances. That's why now we have self-driving electric cars. Who would have thought this 20, 30 years ago? Okay. Will you be able to download a book to your brain? You're going to tell me, how can we do that? Yes, 30 years from now, you will be able to download information into your brain. And somebody now who's very skeptical of all the facts of life is working on it. That in the future, the artificial intelligence and human intelligence are getting closer and closer and closer and closer to each other. So you and the computer will become one thing. So you can easily add 1 terabyte of memory to your brain. You're going to tell me, are you crazy? These are crazy ideas. Well, 30 years down the road, it may happen after we die, somebody will be doing that. So somebody will be downloading, and now in the beginning it has to be wired. In the future it's going to be wireless. You might be able to connect your brain to a machine, and that machine will install 1 terabyte of data into your head. Could you imagine that? Somebody is thinking like that. Those people are the most skeptical people. These people are skeptical of everything. So anything, when you say, no, I cannot do that, they will tell you, let's think about it. Let's work on it. It's just a matter of time, work, effort, energy, all of that. So skepticism, not certainty, is what made us humans, what made us advance, what will make us better in the future. My job is to take these ideas and apply it to human being, individual person, and improve the minds, the psychology of one person, which is you or me or all of us. So these ideas, you apply it, you go back and you apply these ideas on yourself, and you wake in the morning and say, my thoughts, my automatic thoughts, my belief system, what programmed my brain, what was installed in my head when I was young, might be wrong. Reassess it. And do this in every aspect of your life. And don't forget, when you do that, enjoy that process. Enjoy it. And be happy with yourself. and accept yourself. And don't be afraid to be sarcastic of yourself. How stupid I was yesterday. How stupid I was last year. Yeah, that's growth. The ability to have sense of humor and sarcasm on yourself, your own thoughts, your own beliefs, your own emotions, just make fun of things, will help you advance even faster. Because if you're paralyzed by fear, you'll be imprisoned for the rest of your life inside this cage of thoughts and emotions and fears. That's what your genes want you to be, because your genes want to protect you, or what your primitive brain tells you. Accept yourself, but be skeptical of your thoughts. I wish you all the best. We'll see you next week. And please watch the video, and please share it if you like it. Thank you very much.